Discover the heartwarming and inspiring truth of Queen Elizabeth I's 3 incredible final days. Hank Thompson, a 72-year-old veteran, sat in the attic of his Richmond home, surrounded by the dust of forgotten memories. The glimmer of medals hung on his wall, haunting reminders of valor and sacrifice. Yet, as he sifted through old belongings, each piece seemed heavier than the last. Bills piled on the kitchen table, casting shadows over faded photographs and memories of his daughter, Sarah, who felt more like a stranger than the little girl he once held. One day, as Hank dived deep into cardboard boxes, Alice, his neighbor and a local historian, burst through the door like a whirlwind. With her warm smile and infectious enthusiasm, she rummaged through stacks of old letters while Hank watched, uncertain. But when Alice stumbled upon a collection of letters penned by none other than Queen Elizabeth I in her final days, time seemed to pause. "There's something electric about these," she exclaimed, her voice echoing in the quiet attic. As she read, her eyes sparkled. "These letters talk about resilience and love, Hank. They reflect the sacrifices we make for the people we hold dear." Hank felt a tug at his heart as he listened. They mirrored his own struggle, memories of serving his country competing with the reality of his daughter's loneliness. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks as Hank and Alice pieced together the incredible legacy of the letters. He poured himself into the project, reigniting a spark he thought had dimmed. Yet, the more he got lost in the past, the more he seemed to forget about the present. Sarah's calls went unanswered, and the tension between father and daughter thickened like fog on a cold morning. She felt abandoned, her father slipping away not to a battlefield, but to an obsession about a long-dead queen. One afternoon, a line from Elizabeth's letters struck Hank, reverberating through him like thunder. "I have sacrificed my heart for the kingdom, and now I am alone." The heat of realization flooded him. It was as if Elizabeth's pain echoed his own. "Sarah!" he shouted, frustration mingling with fear. The two had a heated argument, years of unspoken words boiling over. Hank was tired of fighting the ghosts of war while facing his own demons. Then, as sickness edged into his days, Hank found it hard to ignore the cracks in his life. Last week, Alice had uncovered a link between their family and Elizabeth's royal house. Hank felt hope begin to flicker like a candle in a darkened room. Maybe, just maybe, they could mend what was broken. But first, he had to face the truth laid bare in front of him. As they dove deeper into Elizabeth's revelations, Hank realized he was fighting the hardest battle not on a foreign field, but within the walls of his own home. The emotional distance still loomed between him and Sarah, creating an aching silence. Could he bridge that gap before it was too late? As letters lay scattered before them, aching with stories of love and sorrow, Hank felt the weight of his choices pressing down. The answers were there, waiting, but would he find the courage to seek them? Hank sat in the attic, feeling the chilling silence wrap around him like a heavy blanket. Alice had left moments before, urging him to take action, to reach out to Sarah. The letters that connected his family to a queen from the past lay scattered in front of him, but their histories were no substitute for the present reality of his daughter's absence. He picked up one of Elizabeth's letters, skimming the inked words. "Love demands sacrifice," it read. The word struck a chord deep within him. He remembered his own sacrifices: late nights at work, long deployments overseas, always believing he was doing it for Sarah's future. But he realized now that he may have sacrificed his relationship with her in the process. Hank's heart raced at the thought. He needed to bridge that gap. The days of longing and isolation had taken a toll on both of them, leaving them stranded on separate islands of hurt. He couldn't wait any longer. Picking up his phone, he hesitated. This was more than a simple call, it was a lifeline. He dialed Sarah's number, the ringing filling the air around him like an unresolved chord in a song. "Come on, pick up," he murmured, each ring pressing down on him like a weight. When her voicemail kicked in, a knot tightened in his stomach. Plucking up his courage, he left a message. "Sarah, it's Dad. I've been thinking about you. I miss you. I'm in the attic, and I found some family letters. They have to do with Queen Elizabeth I. I believe we're connected. Can we talk? Please." He hung up, his breath catching in his throat. The uncertainty of her response was a thick fog that rolled in swiftly. In the tense days that followed, Hank threw himself back into the collection of letters with a frenzied energy. Each word felt like a call to action, an invitation to reconnect with the past and, hopefully, the present. He began to see the royal's writings not just as history, but as a bridge to his own life lessons wrapped in ink about loyalty, love, and the power of vulnerability. Then came the moment he had both dreaded and hoped for. Sarah texted him late one evening. "I got your voicemail. Can we talk tomorrow?" His heart leaped, but doubt threaded through the excitement. What if she didn't want to reconcile? What if the damage was already done? The next day, as the hour approached for their phone call, Hank felt the weight of anticipation swirl in his stomach. He thought of Elizabeth, alone in her final moments, grappling with her own relationships, her sacrifices echoing his. When the call finally came through, Hank almost didn't answer. But he took a long breath and swiped to accept. "Hey, Dad," Sarah said cautiously. "Hey, it's been too long," he started, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've been thinking too," she interrupted softly. "About everything." Hank closed his eyes, listening to her voice. Would this be the moment they could begin to heal? Could they finally uncover the truth behind their emotional distance? As they talked, a realization hit Hank. The past, like the letters in front of him, needed to be opened and read aloud. The more they shared, the more vulnerable he felt, but also invigorated. He sensed the potential for transformation in their conversation, a spark of hope igniting. Yet, just as he began to feel the warmth of reconnection, Sarah's voice faltered. "Dad, there is something you don't know." Hank's heart dropped. What had he missed? Would this revelation shatter the fragile bridge they were building, or would it be the key to understanding each other more deeply than ever? The silence lingered heavily after Sarah's words. Hank's breath came in shallow bursts. He clenched the phone tighter, his knuckles whitening. "What do you mean? What is it?" The question shot out before he could tame the tremble in his voice. Sarah hesitated, a muffled sound on the other end indicating her struggle. "You remember that summer I spent in England, right? The one where I completely fell in love with the history and that one particular story?" "Yes, of course. You were obsessed with the Tudor period." "I thought it was just a phase." "That story wasn't just a phase," she said, her tone growing firmer but still fragile. I learned something about you. About us." "What do you mean?" The urgency in his voice thickened. Hints of fear clawed at the edges of his heart. "I found a connection to Elizabeth. Something we didn't know. Something that could change everything." With each word, Hank felt the weight of years of separation and silence closing in on him. What kind of connection? He pressed, the world around him dissolving into nothing but their conversation. She inhaled deeply, as if drawing courage from the very air. "Dad, she had a secret. A lost child, someone who was hidden away because of the implications of her reign. I think it may be part of our lineage." Hank's thoughts raced. "You're saying we're related to her?" "Not just related. I think we might be descendants through her line. There are letters, diaries, and historians backing this up. I was going to tell you when I was sure, but I just never found the right time." The implications hung in the air, swirling around Hank like dust motes in the sunlight streaming through the attic windows. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? This could be changed everything." "I was scared, Dad," Sarah's voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability beneath her defenses. "I thought you'd dismiss it, like you have with everything else in the past. I thought it wouldn't matter to you. Of course it matters. This is history. This is us." The words slipped out, every syllable laced with both awe and pain. Hank grappled with the enormity of what they were uncovering together. "Just like Elizabeth, I feel like everything in our lives revolved around hidden truths. We've been a part of something greater than ourselves all this time, and it's torn us apart," Sarah continued, tears lacing her words. "But if we can face this truth together, what do we do with it?" The question hung in the air, heavy with gravity. "We start healing, Dad. We connect with our roots and with each other." Hank sat in stillness, processing. The attic felt both small and vast in that moment. The weight of the letters, the stories, the pain, they could become a path to something new. What if this is just the beginning? What if the past holds more secrets we need to uncover? "Exactly," Sarah replied, her voice ringing with newfound conviction. "And I don't want to face any of this without you." A spark ignited in Hank's chest, a warmth that flickered with hope. "Then we'll do this together. I'll dig deeper into these letters. Let us piece together our family's story, our connection to Elizabeth. We owe it to ourselves." He could hear the cautious optimism in her laughter, a sound he had missed for far too long. "I can come over tomorrow. We can read them together." "Yes, let us do it. We'll figure this out side by side," he said firmly, a sense of determination flooding through him. But as he hung up, that initial warmth faded slightly. Would the weight of this legacy strengthen them, or would it push them apart once more? The letters scattered before him whispered promises and secrets. What other surprises awaited them in this newfound connection? The thought sent a rush of excitement through him, and with it, a fear that remained. He would have to confront not only his family's past but also the personal demons that had kept him distanced from Sarah. With an ever-growing pile of letters beside him, Hank realized they stood on the edge of a greater discovery, not just of history, but of forgiveness, love, and maybe even redemption. What if this journey through time would help them unravel their present? As night fell and shadows gathered, Hank felt the question pulse in his veins. Could they emerge from the depths of their family's history stronger than ever, or would the heavy burden of the past ultimately prove too great to bear? Morning sunlight streamed through the attic window, casting a warm glow over the pile of letters that had become the center of Hank's world. Each envelope bore the weight of history, a connection to an era long past. He could almost feel the whispers of Elizabeth, her story intertwining with theirs in a way he had never imagined. Today was the day he would confront the past, and hope it would guide him towards the future. The doorbell rang, jolting him from his thoughts. His heart raced at the sound. Sarah was here. He hurriedly stashed a few letters under an old blanket, as if hiding them from scrutiny. The nervous flutter in his stomach twisted and turned. Would they really be able to piece together the fragments of their family's secret history? "Dad! You ready?" Her voice broke through his reverie, laced with excitement. "Yeah, just a second." He called back, forcing a smile as he opened the door. Seeing her bright face brought a flood of warmth to his heart. The distant shadows of their past felt slightly lighter in her presence. "Morning." Sarah beamed as she stepped inside, a stack of notes clutched to her chest. "I brought my findings too. I thought we could combine what I found with what you have." "Good idea," Hank replied, trying to match her enthusiasm but feeling the weight of uncertainty coil around him. They settled at the small table that seemed overwhelmed by the sheer volume of their discoveries. He watched as she laid out her notes, her fingers moving deftly over the papers. "I found some more about Elizabeth's hidden child. They think she was a girl, possibly named Mary. If she existed, she would have been kept away from the public eye, just like they did with many other royal children. It's all here in these letters." Her eyes sparkled with wonder as she talked. Each word felt like a thread pulling them closer together. Hank took a deep breath, the reality of this journey hitting him squarely in the chest. What if we find something that changes everything? What if this lineage leads to answers about why we've struggled so much? Then we use that information to heal. Sarah looked straight into his eyes, the weight of her sincerity grounding him. Knowing we're tied to her story might help us understand our own. Maybe it can help us understand each other. The hope in her voice broke down barriers Hank had built over the years. He pushed away the gnawing fear and nodded, letting himself believe, even just a little. They began reading through the letters, time slipping away as they pieced together Elizabeth's life and the secrets that shaped their own. Hours later, Hank paused, his fingers trembling on the edge of a brittle page. "Sarah, look at this. It talks about a lost heir, a name mentioned in passing. Could this be Mary?" Sarah leaned closer, her breath hitching as she processed the words. "And if this is true, then everything about our legacy changes." The realization crashed over them like a wave, flooding Hank's heart with both dread and wonder. There was no denying the weight of their discovery. It felt like history was not merely a backdrop but a living part of them, but just as he felt a surge of exhilaration, a heaviness returned tenfold. What if knowing all this only leads to more questions? What if Dad? Sarah interrupted, her voice serious but kind. "You need to trust in this process. History isn't just about the past, it's about us too. If we uncover who we are, it might finally bring us closer." A quiet pause fell over them, the enormity of her words sinking in. Hank realized that for the first time in years, he could feel the walls around their past beginning to crumble. Were they on the brink of a revelation that could transform their fractured relationship? But then, an unexpected knock at the door echoed through the attic, jolting them both. Who could that be? Hank wondered aloud, glancing at Sarah, whose expression was a mix of hope and apprehension. What if it's another piece of the puzzle? She mused, her eyes wide with possibility. Hank's heart raced. What surprise awaited them on the other side? Would it be the answer to their prayers, or more questions that would shake the foundation they were just starting to build? With an anxious breath, he moved toward the door, feeling as if he was opening a chapter that would define not only their past but their future as well. Hank reached for the doorknob, his heart pounding in his chest. The knock had taken on a newfound urgency. He took a moment, inhaling deeply, and reminded himself that whatever lay behind that door, he wasn't alone. He grasped the handle and swung the door open. On the other side stood an elderly woman, her frame small but her presence commanding. She wore a faded blue dress that reminded Hank of the stories he'd read, stories of women who had to wield their strength in silence. Her warm eyes sparkled, and a gentle smile graced her lips as she surveyed them. "Hello there. I hope I'm not interrupting," she said in a soft, melodic voice. "I'm Margaret, a neighbor. I couldn't help but overhear some fascinating talk about old letters. Might I come in?" Hank exchanged a glance with Sarah, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "Sure, come in," he replied hesitantly, stepping aside to let her enter. The woman moved gracefully into the attic, her gaze drifting over the scattered papers and relics that now defined the space. "Ah, the echoes of the past can be quite loud, can't they?" she mused, a knowing look in her eyes. "Yeah, we're just trying to piece together some family history," Hank said, feeling more curiosity than apprehension. "I see," Margaret said as she gently settled into a worn chair. "I spent years researching my own lineage. It's amazing what you can uncover." She then leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "What you seek often reveals more than just the facts. It can offer closure, too." Hank glanced at Sarah, who leaned in, her cheeks slightly flushed with excitement. "We've come across something about a hidden child linked to Elizabeth. Do you know anything about that?" Margaret's expression shifted. "Oh, you've stumbled upon something significant indeed. Elizabeth's mysteries are well guarded, but a lost child. The whispers of history can be both enchanting and protective." "Whispers? What do you mean?" Sarah pressed, her eyes wide with anticipation. Margaret paused, the weight of unspoken stories filling the air. There are stories of Mary. Some say she was a beacon of hope, while others believe she was a tragedy. The truth can be both beautiful and heart-wrenching. Hank felt a knot forming in his throat. Do you believe she really existed? He asked, uncertain whether he wanted the answer. Margaret nodded knowingly. Sometimes, the truth is buried not just in letters, but in the hearts of those who remember. If you're willing to listen, what lies ahead could be profound. The attic felt charged, the air vibrating with the anticipation of revelations. Hank's curiosity piqued as Sarah's eyes flickered with hope. What do we need to do? He asked, with a knowing smile. Margaret looked straight at him. You must dig deeper. There are records that aren't available to just anyone. Family secrets have a way of getting hidden. If you want to connect with your lineage, I can guide you. Just as a spark of excitement ignited in Hank's chest, a crash sounded from the nearby shelves. Papers tumbled to the floor, scattering like leaves caught in a storm. The three of them jumped, the tension palpable in the air. What was that? Sarah exclaimed. I think history is reminding us it has more to say, Margaret replied, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. As they set to assess what was disturbed, Hank felt an urgent pull. Was this mere coincidence, or was it the universe pushing them toward answers that had been buried too deep for too long? With Margaret's promise of guidance still fresh in his mind, the heat of discovery surged within him. What awaited them might change everything. Could they find more than just the truth about Elizabeth's hidden child? With every moment, fate seemed to beckon, and Hank wondered if they were ready. Margaret looked at Hank and Sarah, her eyes glimmering with the weight of untold stories. We need to be careful, she said, her voice a calm anchor in the storm of emotions swirling around them. Every time you dive into the past, you could uncover love, pain, or even heartbreak. Hank felt his heart race. What if they pulled back a layer they weren't ready for? But the flicker of hope in Sarah's eyes drove him on. Tell us what we have to do, he urged. His voice was steady, but inside, the uncertainty churned like a hurricane. First, we need to look at what you've already found, Margaret said, shifting in her chair. She gestured toward the floor where pages were scattered. The letters, photos, anything that sheds light on Mary or Elizabeth. They might hold clues. Sarah was already on her knees, collecting the scattered papers with urgent hands. Here. Look at this. She held up a letter, her expression animated. Margaret adjusted her glasses, leaning forward, eager to see. The letter was dingy, its edges frayed, filled with elegant script that spoke of longing and fear. My dearest Mary, it began, pulling Hank deeper into the words. With each sentence, it felt as if they were listening to a voice from the past. It painted the picture of a mother worried for her child's fate, a heart torn between love and societal expectations. Margaret's breathing stilled as she read. This is it, she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. This can lead us to understand what happened. Hank watched as Sarah's face shifted between hope and despair. Do you think she was taken away? She whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. Margaret placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. Or perhaps she was hidden to protect her. We cannot assume the worst without understanding the full story. As they sifted through what remained of the letters, a small black and white photograph emerged. Hank picked it up, and the image nearly stole his breath away. It was a girl, maybe 10 years old, with bright eyes and a wide smile. She resembled Elizabeth, but there was something different, something more fragile about this child. Who is this? He asked, his finger brushing the edges of the photograph. That is Mary, Margaret said quietly. Or at least, I believe it to be her. See the resemblance? Hank studied the image, a knot tightening in his chest. The weight of who she might become flashed in his mind. He felt a connection to this girl he never even knew existed. But if she was here, why aren't there more records? Margaret sighed, a faraway look in her eyes. Sometimes families hide their truths in shadows. They are frightened of what others will think. Their decisions echo throughout the years, leaving behind mysteries we must now unravel. The attic felt alive, filled with energy as they leaned into the whispers of the past. Hank knew they were on the brink of something monumental, yet an edge of doubt began to creep in. Did he truly want to uncover secrets that might lead them to heartbreak or shame? Just then, Margaret's voice broke through his thoughts. There's a town archive a few hours from here. It holds birth and death records, maybe even more letters. Will you go there with me? Hank exchanged a determined look with Sarah. This was more than curiosity now, it was a quest for truth, a chance to honor a legacy. Yes, let us go, he said, gripping the photograph tightly. Margaret smiled warmly, her demeanor shifting to the eager guide who knew the path ahead. Then prepare yourselves. The next steps might stir feelings you've never expected. With hearts pounding, they began readying themselves for the journey ahead, unaware of the shadows that still loomed over the truths begging to be unveiled. Would they find healing or heartache waiting for them? Only time would tell as they ventured forth into the unknown. The next morning dawned with a bittersweet glow as the sun peeked through the attic's small window, casting warm light on the scattered pages and memories. Hank felt an electric charge in the air, a mix of anticipation and trepidation. He exchanged a quick glance with Sarah as they gathered their things, the photograph of Mary now tucked safely in his pocket, a constant reminder of the fragile thread connecting their lives to the past. Margaret had already mapped out their route, her fingers tracing the outline of the parchment she'd printed. It's just a short drive. We'll have plenty of time to search, she assured them, her determination radiating through her calm demeanor, but Hank wasn't so sure. The questions that had started to bubble beneath the surface during their previous night's discoveries began to affect him. What if they found something truly devastating? Margaret's warnings echoed in his mind. It would be a journey into a labyrinth of emotions, and he wondered if they were strong enough to handle what lay ahead. They loaded into Margaret's old sedan, the engine sputtering to life as they pulled away from the familiar comfort of the home they had grown up in. Sarah sat in the back seat, excitement bubbling over, her fingers playing with the edges of the paperwork she had gathered. What if we find something incredible? She asked, her voice bright, carrying innocence mixed with a hint of naivety. Or something that changes everything, Hank replied softly. The unknown felt heavy, an anchor weighing them down with uncertainty. Margaret turned the radio down, the silence turned into a palpable tension, each moment growing thicker with unspoken feelings. They drove through stretches of landscapes that blurred by, the sights vibrant yet distant, echoing the uncertainty of the stories they were about to uncover. As they rolled into town, the archives appeared before them, an imposing building that seemed to guard the secrets of countless families. Hank's heart raced, pounding against his ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. Margaret led the way inside, her authoritative presence calming the rising anxiety in the air. Rows upon rows of shelves stood tall, filled with files, books, and forgotten stories. Let's start with the birth records, she suggested, heading toward the designated area. Hank filed in behind Margaret, while Sarah darted off to another aisle, her young spirit craving to explore every inch of history concealed within these walls. The smell of old paper and dust filled the air, a scent that carried whispers of lives lived long ago. Hank pulled out a dusty box labeled with years long since past. As he sifted through yellowed pages, one caught his eye, a name written in black ink, Mary Lawson. His heart raced, hope igniting another flurry of energy inside him. Margaret! Come here, Hank called, his voice echoing through the hushed space. Margaret hurried over, her eyes widening with curiosity as she read the document in his hands. Yes, this is definitely her birth certificate. The words hung in the air like a starlit sky revealing a constellation of hidden truths. As they leaned closer to examine the details, a noise broke through their focus. A loud crash from the other side of the room sent a rush of adrenaline through them. Hank's heart jumped into his throat. What was that? Sarah appeared at Hank's side, her eyes wide. I don't know, he replied, a shiver crawling up his spine. The atmosphere shifted. They weren't just here to search for truth, something more unsettling was afoot. Could the past reach out to them in unexpected ways? Hank felt the weight of history pressing down as he moved toward the source of the sound, a spark of fear mingling with anticipation. What more awaited them in the shadows of the archive? Hank stepped cautiously, his heartbeat quickening with every step he took towards the commotion. The musty air of the archive suddenly felt stifling, filled with the weight of unanswered questions. He sensed Margaret's presence just behind him, ready to support him as they confronted whatever had disturbed their search. They rounded a corner only to find a stack of filing cabinets toppled over, papers spilling like confetti across the floor. Sarah gasped, her excitement dampening in the face of the chaos. Amidst the mess, a figure darted away, casting a shadow that blurred into the dimly lit aisles. "Hey!" Hank shouted, instinctively rushing after them, driven by a mix of curiosity and caution. The figure didn't look back but pushed through a doorway leading deeper into the archives. "Wait!" Margaret called, her voice authoritative and firm. But the echoing footsteps faded, blending with the quiet rustle of paper against the hardwood floor. "What just happened?" Sarah asked, anxiety creeping into her tone. Hank turned to face her, his expression conveying a mix of concern and curiosity. "I don't know, but we need to find out. That person might know something. Let us stick together." They pressed on, Hank leading the way, his mind racing. Had they stumbled upon someone who shared their journey, or was it merely an intruder? The corridors felt like darkened veins, guiding them away from the comfort of truth and into shadows thick with mystery. They reached the door where the figure had disappeared, and Hank pushed it open slowly. He stepped through, holding his breath, the world around him transforming into an illusion of hidden secrets waiting to be uncovered. The space was smaller, lit only by flickering fluorescent lights. "Hello!" he called out, his voice echoing off the walls. Silence greeted him, and disappointment settled heavily in the pit of his stomach. Margaret stepped in beside him, her brow furrowed. "Let us not lose hope. They must be here somewhere," she said, scanning the room. Tension hung in the air, stretching every moment. Then, a rustle came from the far corner. Hank's instincts kicked in once more, and he started moving cautiously toward the sound. As they neared, a figure emerged from behind a shelf, a young woman, her face pale and eyes wide. "Who are you?" Hank asked, his heart racing again from surprise. I was searching for something important," she stammered, glancing nervously between them. "I didn't expect anyone else to be here." "Neither did we." Margaret's voice softened. "We're trying to learn more about Mary Lawson. Do you know anything about her?" A flicker of recognition crossed the woman's face. "Mary, yes, I've read about her." She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. "But it's complicated." "What do you mean?" Hank pressed, feeling a spark of urgency. The pieces of this puzzle were beginning to fit together, and he could sense they were close to something significant. "Come with me," the woman finally said, glancing toward the door they had entered through. There was a heaviness in her voice, a sorrow intertwined with determination. "There is something you need to see." Hank and Margaret exchanged glances, then nodded. They followed the woman deeper into the cramped room, closer to whatever truth awaited them. As they walked further in, Hank felt a flip in his stomach, the unknown edging into something exhilarating yet terrifying. Would this lead them to answers, or plunge them further into an emotional labyrinth? With bated breath, he entered the shadow of revelation, wondering just how deep the roots of their family's history went and what the young woman knew about Mary Lawson. What secrets from the past were they about to unveil? The young woman led them to a small desk cluttered with faded photographs and yellowing documents. As she gestured toward the mess, her fingers trembled slightly. This is what I've been trying to piece together. Mary Lawson's journal." Hank's pulse quickened. "You have her journal?" His optimism was tinged with a sense of desperation. "Where did you find it?" "It was tucked away in a box buried in these archives," she explained, lifting a dusty volume from a nearby shelf. The leather cover was cracked, but the spine was intact. "But there's more. It's not just her thoughts, it's a chronicle of events that led to some rather significant decisions she made." Margaret leaned closer, intrigued. "Significant how?" The young woman took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the pages as if searching for the right words. Mary faced incredible challenges. There were love affairs, political strife, and decisions that changed the course of history. The warmth in her voice gave way to a chill. But all of it was shrouded in mystery. Many details were buried or altered by those who feared the truth. Truth can be a double-edged sword, Hank said, sensing the weight of her statement. He reached out, feeling an odd connection to Mary Lawson. Did you find anything about her family? About what happened to them? The young woman's expression faltered. Yes, she wrote about her sister, about how their fates were intertwined. The sadness in her tone struck Hank like a physical blow. Mary lived with guilt over the choices she made. She believed she could protect her family, but... Margaret prompted gently, sensing the intensity in the moment. But things didn't go as planned. The young woman's voice wavered, revealing the emotional toll the story had taken on her. She lost them, one by one. This journal is a heartfelt plea for redemption, a reclaiming of her legacy. Hank felt a lump grow in his throat. The weight of loss was palpable. Do you think she found peace? Or did she carry that burden until the end? I can't say for certain, she replied softly, but I believe she wanted to. She wrote extensively about seeking forgiveness, hoping to mend her family bonds even in the face of despair. Her eyes met Hank's, and for a brief moment, they shared an unspoken understanding. He realized this wasn't just a story from the past. It was about vulnerability, regret, and a desire for connection, the very essence of what it meant to be human. What's your name? Hank asked, trying to piece together the story behind the revelations. Emma, she answered, her voice now steadier. My grandmother was a distant cousin of Mary's. I stumbled upon her journal while looking into family history. Have you pieced together all the fragments? Margaret asked, eagerness creeping back into her tone. Emma nodded, her face illuminating with gratitude. But I need help. There are more layers to uncover, more people involved. Together, we can bring this story to light. It's not just about Mary, it's about understanding where we come from and the legacies we leave behind. Hank's heart raced with newfound purpose. He needed to explore this tangled history, not just for himself, but for all those touched by Mary Lawson's life. If we dig deeper, what could we discover? He wondered, curiosity piercing through the complexity. Emma smiled, a hint of hope in her eyes. We might find answers that could heal wounds far greater than we imagined. As Hank glanced at the journal resting atop the cluttered desk, anticipation coiled inside him. What more lay within the pages? Together, they stood on the edge of an emotional precipice, ready to leap into a past that reached across time, yearning to be heard. Could that leap finally lead them to the truth they both so desperately sought? Hank and Sarah stood shoulder to shoulder with Emma, feeling an electric tension crackling in the air. This is our chance, Hank murmured, clutching the journal's worn cover. The weight of generations lay in their hands, a chance to weave together their pasts into something that could heal the wounds of their present. As they opened the journal, the scent of aged parchment wafted up like a forgotten fragrance, transporting them back in time. Each entry felt like a lifeline, revealing not just the secrets of a young girl named Mary, but the language of love and sacrifice, echoes of regret that resonated with their own lives. Hank could almost hear Elizabeth's voice guiding him through the pages, urging him to find solace in vulnerability. Listen to this, Sarah said, her voice a mix of awe and urgency. Mary writes about a moment when she chose between love and duty. She felt trapped, much like we do. But she bravely faced her choices. The hope in her voice flickered like light breaking through heavy clouds. Hank nodded, feeling the connection between their histories deepening. Every sacrifice brings us closer to understanding who we are and what we stand for, he added, his heart swelling with pride for the daughter he had almost lost. They were discovering not just Mary's legacy, but their own. As they continued reading, Emma's fingers brushed lightly against the pages. Mary poured her heart out here. It's as if she knew her truth would matter across centuries, she commented, tears glistening in her eyes. And now, we have the power to honor that truth. Sarah leaned in, her enthusiasm palpable. If we can reveal Mary's story, we might finally find closure for our own. The letters, the journal, they're all pieces of a puzzle. Together, we can reshape what it means to be a part of this legacy. Hank felt a sense of hope ignite within him. This could be the bridge we needed to mend our family. He shared a glance with Sarah, an unspoken agreement sparking between them. They had spent too long lost in silence and solitude. It was time to break those barriers. Suddenly, a knock on the door jolted them from their reverie. Hank's heart raced. Would it be more echoes of the past? He opened the door carefully, revealing Margaret, who wore an expression filled with excitement and purpose. "Have you uncovered anything?" she asked, quickening her pace toward the desk, eyes shining with anticipation. Hank nodded, holding the journal proudly. "It's incredible. Mary's story contains the power to connect us with the past, and in doing so, we can start healing." Margaret's smile widened, her presence radiating warmth. "This is what history is all about, bringing forth the hidden layers of love and loss that define us." She peered at the pages. "Let us organize this. Every detail matters." Together, the four of them delved into the journal's pages, collecting pieces of Mary's life as if they were gathering precious gems. Stories unfolded Mary's secret dreams, her fears, and her longing for connection. With each word, they felt the weight of their family story shifting, reshaping into something stronger, something resilient. Hours passed as they pieced together the timeline, searching for connections between Mary and their own experiences. Hank could see how much Sarah thrived with every shared discovery. The chatter, laughter, and moments of silence became a dance of understanding, a celebration of their newly forged bond. "Look!" Sarah exclaimed, excitement bubbling over. "This letter mentions a meeting with a nobleman who was rumored to be her confidant. It could unlock more about Mary's hidden life." Hank watched as she animatedly jotted down notes, feeling the wall between them dissolving like mist in sunlight. For the first time in years, he felt seen, truly seen by his daughter. That sense of reconnection filled the empty spots in his heart. As they gathered the journal and letters, Hank's resolve solidified. "Let us take Mary's story beyond these pages," he declared. "Let us honor her legacy by sharing it with others, by weaving it into our lives and the lives of those who come after us. It's time our family history no longer lives in shadows." Emma clasped her hands together, eyes sparkling. "I'll help however I can. Imagine the impact this could have. It's more than just history, it's about building bridges for futures yet to come." With each plan they made, uncertainty faded, replaced by a fierce determination. Hank felt elated knowing that while the journey forward might still twist and turn, they would navigate it together. Days turned into weeks as the four of them transformed their findings into an event, a community gathering to share Mary's story, where they de-intertwined their ancestry with the broader narrative of resilience and love. They crafted the invitations with care, uniting their histories under one shared mission. Hank felt a change wash over him, more profound than any he could have imagined. On the day of the gathering, the community hall buzzed with life, filled with friends, family, and new faces eager to learn. Hank looked at Sarah, standing proud beside him. She smiled back, a radiant spark illuminating her spirit. For the first time in years, it felt as if the distance that had once defined their relationship had vanished. As Hank took center stage, he felt the glow of warmth surrounding him. "Today, we come together to walk through history, not just as individuals, but as a family joined in love, connection, and understanding." Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes as she reached out for her father's hand, squeezing it tight. Emma and Margaret stood resolutely beside them, presenting a united front. As voices rose in harmony, stories of Mary filled the room, echoing laughter and tears commingling. Families connected, hearts opened, and the message of forgiveness rang true, reverberating off the walls in waves of hope. Hank's heart swelled, knowing the journey wasn't merely about unveiling Mary's past, but forging a new path for their shared future. Together, they had uncovered a truth that transcended time, a legacy of love that would bind them together always, and as the evening drew to a close, with hugs exchanged and tears wiped away, Hank's heart echoed a powerful truth: the past had brought them here, but it was love that would carry them forward. Now was the time for action. If you felt this journey, you need to subscribe immediately to catch the next exclusive stories. Don't miss out. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It makes a difference. Comment down below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to know how this touched you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.